Perfect. All right. We will get started here. First off, Sarah, thank you so much for joining. Means a lot. And for those of you who don't know, I moved to the Quad Cities in 2016 while my wife was in PA school, and reached out to a ton of agents. And Sarah was really the first one that gave me an opportunity and got me introduced to a crowd over there in the real estate industry. So uh, super grateful for that, and that's how I met my boss and good friend now, John Cornish. So, Sarah, I will let you jump in and just introduce yourself, talk about how you got into real estate and where you're at now, and we'll
Sure.
go from there.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me, Louie. It means a
Yep.
lot. And so I got licensed in 2010, licensed in Iowa and Illinois, being right on the border. My dad was a realtor. He was a managing broker for my previous brokerage. And so he worked for 20 years, and I've been licensed now for 14. And so for the first 10, we worked together. We were the father daughter team. I'm sorry, I'm getting a phone call. Okay. Can you see me again?
Yep.
Sorry, the problems of being on my phone.
No, you're good.
Um, so he passed away pretty unexpectedly in 2019. And so it went from working every day with him to then being on my own and trying to figure this out. And I just kind of quickly had to pick up the pieces. And I feel so lucky that I had such a great mentor for 10 years, which led me to where I am today. And it's just been a lot of hard work to build the business and consistency and that kind of thing. So I think we'll go over a lot of that today.
Absolutely. Yeah, your dad was awesome. Like I said in my Facebook post, kind of pumping this webinar up, but he always allowed me to tag along at like the farmers market when he,
Yeah.
had the touch screen and everything. So,
Yes.
yeah, great person to learn from. And I think honestly, the best thing to learn from him is he like treated everybody with respect, whether you were new in
Hmm.
the industry or you had 30 years of experience. So,
Yes.
um, your company that you're currently with, because you just made a transition, you're currently
Yep.
with
I'm
Real,
at Real
right?
Bro. Yep, Real, and I made that switch. It'll be a year next month.
And what was the reasoning? Because I
Yeah.
know
So
that had to been
my
hard.
previous brokerage was a great place to start my career, and I just felt like I kind of was starting to outgrow that model. And what really attracted me to Real is that they're a technology company, and they happen to just specialize in real estate. So a lot of things are streamlined, and technology's better, marketing's better. Things are just a little more 2024, I would say. So that was the reason for the switch. And when you make a big move like that, I'm not someone that has switched brokerages. I was at the same place for 13 years. So it was a big change, and it was one of those where you hope for the best and do a lot of research before you make the change. And now it's just really exceeded my expectations. So I feel lucky that we made the switch almost a year ago.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. And one of the things that, I've been impressed in your career is just your knowledge of the market in the Quad Cities.
Thanks.
Obviously, that takes a lot of research and keeping up with things. So, like, if you could dive into how you analyze the market and relay that message to your buyers and sellers to give them the best feedback to make the right decisions.
Sure. So with it, the market obviously is always ever evolving, and it's hard to stay on it unless you're really showing that many homes to know. And now it just takes a lot of experience, I guess. And when you're first getting started, it's, well, how do I get into these homes? And I don't know, in Des Moines, do you do like a realtor tour where on Tuesdays listings will be open and that kind of thing? We
Yep,
do
I
that
know.
here.
Yep.
So that was something that I did early on, just because I didn't have a lot of buyers at that point. I might have one or two that I'm working with that maybe they're pre-approved to 200. Well, then you know nothing about the $400,000 market. So to go to open houses, whether they're regular open houses or realtor opens, it's just a nice way to meet other agents and get a feel for pricing and where. And to be boots on the ground is really, I think, the only way that you can really understand the current market that you're in, and to just I try to, you can't see every listing that comes through the MLS, but one thing that I did early on was set up auto emails to myself. Of course, we're doing that for our clients as something gets listed, they want to know, but also I want to know. So if something in my neighborhood within like a 6 block radius gets listed, it's sent to me. And I might not have any clients in that range, but at least I can speak confidently on what's happening in my neighborhood or target neighborhoods that you seem to sell a lot in.
For sure. And the agent open thing, I think, I mean, they're happening daily here, I feel like in Des
Sure.
Moines, but I feel like a lot of people forget that they do a great job of building relationships with clients, but
Hmm.
it's just as important to have that great relationship with the agents in the local market because you want to be in the know.
Yeah.
And having those relationships will help you long term. And I think that's another thing that I've been impressed with is like you have an abundance mindset, I
Hmm.
feel like,
Oh, yeah.
to where there's enough business to go around, and it's important to have relationships with different agents at different brokerages
Mm.
because there's a lot happening, and to be in the know and to be liked it is super important.
Totally. Yeah. Collaboration over competition. I mean, very rarely are we really in competition with each other. Of course, you're going to occasionally go against another agent for a listing appointment or
Right.
something like that, but it's pretty rare that it's the same person every single time. And there is plenty of business to go around, even in a down market for great agents.
For sure. For sure. And one thing with your business, you said you've never made a cold call.
Yeah.
That's
Never.
crazy.
I'm just too sensitive. I think if somebody hung up on me or they were mean to me, I'm not good about that. So it's just not something that, one, I don't really love to talk on the phone anyway. I'm a true millennial through and through, text me. But the cold call thing, I just have never liked to ask for business in that way. I much rather would have it relationship based because it's much easier. A warm handoff is much easier than a cold handoff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So most of your business is past clients, sphere, and then I
Referral.
imagine professional relationships that you have.
Hmm. Correct.
What would be the number one piece of advice you would have for nurturing those relationships long term? Because as your business grows, and I've learned this, it's harder to give
Hmm.
that attention to everybody.
Yeah.
So, maybe go into some marketing stuff that you do or
Sure.
outbound stuff that you do to keep in touch.
Yeah. So if the average person, if they stay in their house 7 years, it is hard to stay direct connected. Social media has given us a huge advantage compared to 30 years ago, where you had to send mailers or that kind of thing. And I do all of the above. For sure, I'm making sure that I become friends with them on Facebook or Instagram. And a way that I check in is if I see, oh, the couple that I sold the house to last year, they finally got engaged, or 2 years later, they had a baby, I'm sending something to them. So people always post their nice family photos. And so if I see one, I'm like, oh, that's so cute. I'll screenshot it. We'll get if you've ever heard of Small Woods, it's a portrait company and they come in a nice wood frame packaged nicely and it goes to their house. And it's probably between 50 and $100 to send to them. And so it's not a cheap thing, but it's one of those, okay, that's going on the wall in the home that I sold to them. And it's really touching to them, I guess. Other things I do is Spoonful of Comfort. That's a website that it's you can send it's basically packaged soup and bread and cookies, and it comes really nice. And that's another thing that's probably between 50 and $100, but it can be for any event. Maybe someone passed away, maybe they're sick or a new baby. So it's just a way to kind of touch base and, hey, I'm checking in with you guys and just want you to know that I'm still here for you and our relationship didn't end at the transaction.
Absolutely. Social media is huge. I mean,
Mhm.
people talk about their life on there and what's going on. So
Yeah.
just keeping tabs on that. I guess, do you have a scheduled time like throughout the day that you try to like block out, or is it just random?
Random. I do some
Okay.
time blocking on certain things with just touching base with clients or seeing a big life event that they had. That's all just seen on Facebook or
Right.
Instagram. And so I'll screenshot it, and I have an assistant, Carrie, and she runs all the behind the scenes. So if I screenshot it, send it to her, she knows what to do to get it ordered. And within a few days, it's there. So I don't time block to look for that stuff. It just, if it comes through my feed, I see it and then touch base with them that way.
For sure. So what is your team structure? Is it just you as a single agent on your team?
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the things that really led me to Real is I have nothing against the big traditional team. It's I just know that that's not really for me. So I the way mine is set up is it's more of a mentorship. So I know that I am where I am because I had a really good mentor. And so now it's time for me to kind of give some of that knowledge back to agents. So I have a group called the DeWulf Pack, and there's 10 of us. And so we don't work on a traditional 50-50 team split or anything like that, but they are their own agent. So we are volume and that kind of thing is each of us. So I'm not taking any of their volume. It's more, I'm just here for questions, marketing, collaboration. Hey, what's working, what's not? We do team meetings every other week, just to talk about the state of the market and changes coming, of course, in August and all of that.
With changes coming,
Yeah,
can you touch on that and how you guys are handling that? Because each brokerage is handling this a little bit different, and it's naive to not get out in front of this and talk about it and be ready. So,
absolutely.
um, go ahead and jump into
Yeah.
how you're
So
handling
the
it.
the biggest thing we've been doing is just simply talking about it. And that was from the week that it got announced. We started having conversations around this on, okay, what's changing? How is it changing? And right now I think we have a good plan in place that it's right now I'm telling people it's business as usual. Of course there's going to be additional forms, and I've never been someone that's signed exclusive buyer agency forms previously. However, I know that moving forward is something that I have to do. So now, anytime I have a new buyer's consultation, I'm treating it just the same as a listing appointment. I don't leave a listing appointment without a contract signed. And so that's going to be the same thing now. So anytime that I meet with a buyer now, I go over the agency form, the EBA form, expectations of the market. Anytime, I think it's so important to do a buyer's consultation meeting, and a lot of agents don't. They'll get the pre-approval and they just start showing houses. And we all know that this market is competitive, especially with some of the good listings. And so I always want to prep my buyers for best and worst case scenario, and then try to give them as much information as I can to let them make the educated decision on what works best for their family.
For sure. So business as usual, but you're being as transparent as possible with buyers, sellers, just so they're in the know.
Yeah, it's more switching my mind frame than anything else. Of course, when things got announced and it's like, oh my gosh, our whole world's going to change, but I don't think so. And when it's in the national news, there was a couple weeks where I was going to listing appointments and it was coming up. And then now it seems to have died down and the news has moved on to something else. So now no one's even talking about it. So I think in our real estate world and lender world, we all know what's going on, but I think the general public for the most part really doesn't care or understand.
For sure. What would you say to a seller? Because it's going to come up in
Mhm.
conversations. What would you say to a seller that says, "Hey, I don't have to pay buyer's agent commission. This is great."
Yeah.
What would be your advice to them
I just had this
today?
happen actually. He said, "Oh, I saw the new changes coming, and so that means that I don't have to offer a buyer's co-op. I only have to pay you." And so I said, "Well, that is an option. That wouldn't be what I would suggest because realtor to realtor, we sell 94% of other properties. I personally do not do dual agency, so meaning I'm not going to represent a buyer and seller in the same transaction, really, no matter what. So we want to offer some sort of compensation to bring a buyer and a buyer's agent because the last thing that we want is someone coming to me and saying they want to write the offer. I won't represent them. They have no one to hold their hand through this process, and it's going to be a big mess. The other thing that I brought up is that so on this example, it was a $300,000 house. And he said, okay, so I only want to pay 3% and not offer anything to the buyer's agent. And so as we were going over the comps, I said, okay, well, all of these offered compensation. So now we're saying that your house is worth ten to $15,000 less than any of these comps because that price was already included for the commission. So then he started to think, oh, okay, now I get it. And by the end of it, he just was misinformed by the media. He thought that you just don't, that's not, you can't pay a buyer's agent anymore. And that's really not the case. It just won't be offered on the MLS, is the only difference. So
For sure. And like, if I'm a seller, I'm paying buyer's agent commission because I want more people out there.
yeah, and the
So
other way I tried to kind of back into it was, well, what are you looking to walk away with? Do you have a goal in mind of what your net proceeds are? And then let's take the commission from there, and can we push the price, can we not? And so I almost did like a reverse net sheet with him, prior to having an offer, but just kind of explaining, here's where we are, here's the fees that could come, and knowing that it's all negotiable. So if the offer comes in that's maybe less than what we anticipated, I have no problem chipping in on my side of the commission. And I don't know if the buyer's agent would, but hopefully they would. I mean, it's a team effort to try to get the deal together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So with you, I mean, you did over 130 transactions last year.
Hmm.
Obviously, as a single agent and just an assistant, that's really tough to do,
Yeah.
and impressive. So, just from a customer service standpoint, because you want all your clients to have the same experience,
Hmm.
what are like, do you have processes in place on how every single client is treated from start to finish?
Yes. Yeah, that is so we have different checkpoints kind of along the way, and they're each customized. I don't ever want it to seem like it's AI sending an email. And I never want them to think that once the house is sold that I've stepped away and they're only dealing with Carrie, my assistant. So the way that we handle that from a seller, well, one, to stay organized, we use an app called Trello. I don't know if you use Trello, but it's a um, could I know we talked about my screen. I would just show it to you, but basically Trello is a it's a communication system for Carrie and I. So we have different boards, and one is pending transactions, active listings, upcoming listings. So she can always know kind of what's going on in my brain or when something's going live. And then when it comes to emails and checkpoints, we send several different out. So, of course, once something's under contract, she's saying, here's a copy of all your documents. Congratulations on the signed offer. Here's next steps. And it's earnest money, inspections, all the things. And then we'll touch base again to remind them to turn on, get utilities switched. After closing, we'll check in a couple weeks later, just make sure everything's going okay. Maybe send a Google review at that point, and then also say, hey, did you sign up for homestead tax credit? Here's the link in case you haven't. So we try to just, and Carrie will always say, hey, Sarah wanted me to remind you, not, hey, do this, this, and this. It's
Right,
that way she's still saying my name and I'm still included. And my clients all know they can call or text me at any time. So yeah, so we've tried over the years to really kind of make this a well-oiled machine, on days that we are super busy and it's back to back and I just don't have a ton of time to communicate with Carrie. We've got Trello so that she always knows kind of what's happening next.
for sure. Is there anything you do from post inspection to the utilities reach out?
Hmm.
I feel like that's a huge gap that I see a lot of agents miss out on.
Hmm.
And that's honestly why I implemented, and I know John does it, the weekly updates. You know, we
Yeah.
update both agents involved just so they have something to go back to their people with.
Yep.
Is there anything specific that you do in that time frame?
Yeah, and that one, we don't do an email on that. It's a text from me. So I'm checking in with the clients and saying, okay, we're past inspections. At this point, we're kind of just waiting to close. And you're going to switch utilities and all that. And Carrie will get that to them with the links so that it's really easy. But it's mostly just, hey, do you have any questions? And 9 times out of 10, they do. They have something that is they just don't know how to handle or what to set up, or especially if they're moving here from out of town, they might need suggestions on doctors, hair salons, all that stuff.
For sure. And that's so important because you're being proactive and not reactive. And, you know, for agents, lenders, whoever, it's so important to like find those proactive checkpoints so you're not handling, I mean, you're still going to handle calls off hours, but you want to mitigate that as much as possible. So,
Right.
so here's a question for younger agents. So,
Yeah.
for younger agents starting out, what is the number one piece of advice that you would give them to get a hot start to their career? Because everyone thinks like your dad gave you all the business, and
Yeah.
I know that that's not the case. People around you know that's not the case. You worked your ass off for it. So,
Yeah.
what would be the piece of advice that you would have for younger people that are kind of coming into this world in a really crazy time?
Yeah.
So,
So in the beginning, it's not so much what you know, but who you know. And I would say have meet as many people and have as many conversations as you have. Um, as you can. And sometimes that means joining different committees, volunteer opportunities, things that you like to do. all conversion happens in conversation. And so it doesn't have to be, hey, I'm Sarah, I'm a real estate agent. Do you know anyone looking to buy or sell? It can just be so much more natural by having just a normal conversation. So I would say get out there, meet as many loan officers as you can, other real estate agents. If you have an office, talk to some of the agents that have been in the business 10, 20, 30 years, try to shadow them. Because you'll pick up different things from different people, and then you can rip off and duplicate and make it your own. And that's really what I've done over the years, is just seen other people do things and then say, oh, I could do that, and then try to make it my way or what I think works.
For sure. And with you doing this much business, I imagine you have agents that look up to you that you put in opens if you have
Okay.
multiple opens going on that weekend. Are you still doing a lot of opens yourself?
Yeah, I wish I could say that I've retired from open houses.
Right.
They're not my favorite thing to do, but I always want to keep my clients happy. And so if they want me there, most sellers are okay with agents on my team or agents within my office to do the open house. But occasionally I just don't want them to feel like they never saw me again in situations where the listing isn't selling. Right now, it's great to be a listing agent, at least here, because things are moving so quickly. But in the situations where they're not, and it's like, what else can we do if we're not dropping the price? It's open houses, it's new marketing videos, it's just trying to think outside the box to make sure that the client doesn't feel like you're just sitting back waiting for the phone to ring.
For sure. Yeah. Um, I mean, I think that's where, everyone wants to get out of the grunt work, right? Open
Right.
houses, all that, but it's still so important. You don't have to do every one of them, but showing the seller that, listen, I'm doing this many transactions. I could have someone else do this, but to still do that with the amount of transactions that you're doing is super, super impressive. So,
Ah, thanks.
as far as technology, so you mentioned your little, communication within the team. What
Yep.
other pieces of tech that are you using? I imagine Real has probably
Yeah,
a
they
ton of
do.
stuff internally, but
They do internally, but aside from that stuff, I just used a company called Homestack, and they created an app. And John's on my app. It's awesome. It's Quad City related home search. It's made to look just like Realtor.com and Zillow and all the sites that your clients are on. But then I have my clients download my app, then they're not Zillow's not taking their information, and the agent that's paying for zip code leads isn't then showing them a house and buying it. That hasn't happened to me for a while, but you hear those stories all the time. So the app I've been super excited about. It's not a cheap thing to do, but I think it's very worth it. It's been I think I've had over like 5,500 people logging in so far, and it's only been a couple months. So it's not, so if you get on it, you can't pull like Des Moines listings or anything. It's only the Quad City area realtors MLS, but it's been great for clients because they can message me directly on there. I'm also able to see what houses they're favoriting so I can get a feel for kind of what they're looking for. So that's been probably the most exciting change this year is the DeWolf Pack app, which is in the App Store.
okay. Awesome. Awesome. And do you pay for Zillow or anything like that? Do you pay for
I do
leads?
get some realtor.com leads, and I mostly just work referral based at this point, but the leads that come in, I just send to the agents on my team.
Okay. Okay, because that's Zillow, I feel like it's only getting more expensive,
Yeah.
and the quality of leads in a market like in 2020, 2021, I mean, it was great, right? Because you have so many
Right.
leads coming in. So I was just curious, how much you
Yeah,
get
I've done
from
them
that, but
on and off over the years of trying to grow the business and getting leads. And I will say that over the last 14 years, I think you're better off spending money putting it back into your sphere of influence than monthly hope for the best leads.
for sure. Do you do client events?
I do, yeah. I try to touch base at least like 6 to 10 times a year, whether it's a mailing or an event. So in December, we rented out the Last Picture House, which is a movie theater here, and we had Elf. It was over Christmas break, so all the kids and they came while they were out of school, and we had popcorn and pop, and I had a videographer there, and all in, I mean, it was maybe like $1,500. It wasn't super expensive. Not that that's cheap and it's not super expensive, expensive, but I did get 3 clients that reached out after and said, "Oh, my aunt's selling her house. You should reach out." So they end up paying for themselves, and the clients loved it. Plus, they're all posting it on social media because it was a cool place to have an event. So that was really fun. And then this summer, I'm going to, right as school goes back, so maybe like August or September, I'm going to rent out a drive-in movie theater and invite my clients to come that way and have pop. And hopefully, it's a nice night. So, kind of 2 movie events, family related. Obviously, you don't have to have kids to go to a movie. So, I tried to keep it all age groups.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part is we've had a, at least here in Des Moines, we've had a client event for just adults at
Oh,
a
sure.
rooftop bar just to try to make it fun. But anytime you can include kids, now that,
Hmm.
I'm a dad of two,
Yeah,
it makes it so much easier and it gets you out of the house where you can bring them to something and not spend a ton of money too.
right. Exactly.
So Rich has a question here. Let's see. Rich, I'm just going to allow you to open up your mic. If anyone wants to chat, just go ahead and raise your hand, and then I'll go to you. Give me one sec here. You're muted, Rich. Okay, we'll just read it here. It should be at the top, right next to leave event or leave meeting. Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I'll just read it, Rich.
Read it.
I think it's
Okay.
probably something on my end. Where are you and your team at with educational events and home buyer seminars?
Ah, I used to, I'd say the first 10 years of my career, we would do home buyer events, and they were awesome. I would do them with John Cornish, and we would probably do them quarterly or so. And sometimes you'd get 15 people and sometimes you'd get one. But I would say all but one, I picked up a buyer, if not more than one. So they definitely, I think, are worth it. I just personally don't do them anymore just I have 2 little kids and usually they were at night, and from a time perspective, my time isn't spent as well anymore doing that. But I do believe in them, and I think that any new agent should do them and find a lender partner to do them with quarterly and be consistent. That's the biggest thing.
Perfect. Hey, Rich, try it now.
Mic is working. Here we are. Hi,
Yay.
Oh,
Sarah.
sorry.
Hi.
It was a setting on my end. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
no worries. I'm not a Teams expert either, so I thought
Yeah.
maybe it was me. But no, thank you for sharing that. It's one of
Yeah.
those things that like, so I'm actually in insurance. I'm not even in the real estate stuff, but I just overlap
Cool.
with you guys so much.
Yeah.
And I always try to pull things away where I can. I'm always interested on these. When you were doing them, were you doing them virtually? Were you doing in person?
In
Were you
person.
partnering up with in other industries? Um,
Yeah. I several different ways. So always in person. During COVID, we did have a couple options of like a Zoom link for them to sit in on, and we really didn't have a lot of good luck with that. I don't even think we ever had anybody log in virtually. I seemed to notice that people wanted to come, whether it was for the free food or free drinks or
yeah,
whatever. In person was just a little bit better. So yeah, so then, and I've had insurance people come, inspectors. I mean, you certainly could tweak it however you want to. I tried to keep it to maybe like an hour of talking, and
sure.
not just me talking, but everyone, and then the rest just kind of open up Q&A to make it a little more fun. And a lot of times I noticed they were kind of intimidated and
Yeah.
didn't know how to buy a house or scared to ask questions. And so we just tried to keep it light and easy. And there are no dumb questions. And most people don't buy and sell houses every day. So nothing you ask is out of the ordinary.
That's like one of the things that I've seen where it's like I've been a part of a handful where it's like, actually the best one I was ever a part of, most attendance was a random last minute ice storm. We canceled it, switched to virtual, and like way more people showed up than
Oh my
expected.
gosh. Wow.
But prior to that, it seems so hit and miss. And it was just kind of figuring out like, how do you differentiate this event and like, who do you market it to?
Mhm.
So, something in my head, I've done quite a bit of like targeted ads and stuff. And I was like, if you could target like, a targeted ad to every apartment complex in an area, like that's so many people who are probably teetering on the edge of like, man, maybe I need to buy a home at some point. Who shows up to these events and that type of thing is something that I kind of wrestle with. So
Yeah, and I think it's so important to brand everything that you do. So you see a lot of, okay, home buyer class come. Well, they usually kind of want to know more information. So what we did is started a Facebook page called Quad City Home Buyers Academy. And so they would come, we teach them everything there is to know about buying a house. They'd get a certificate at the end, kind of make it like a real event.
that's awesome.
And yeah, and we had good luck with that, because then people, they'd say, oh, they'd tell their friends that I went to the Home Buyers Academy, you should go. And it was just kind of another way to get people through the door.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, anytime.
Any other questions now that you can all speak? And I apologize. Perfect. We'll keep cruising then. So I think one of the hardest parts about having growth in business and doing well, and you've had a lot of success, you've made a lot of money, you've built a team, it's hard to keep leveling up.
Hmm.
So what are some things that you do to continue on that personal development side of things? Because
Yeah.
it's easy to get complacent. I think that's where a lot of people fall off.
Yeah. And I really kind of felt that way at my previous brokerage, that it just, I didn't have a lot of, I guess, inspiration. And now, being around all these people that are way better realtors than me, that sell a lot more than I do, it's cool to learn from them in that kind of ecosystem. So it sounds kind of cheesy, but truly, I wake up every day and I'm like, okay, what can I do to make my systems better? So Carrie and we meet every Monday typically and try to tweak, okay, what's working, what's not. There's always a way to improve your business. I listen to a ton of podcasts. Being a real estate agent, we're in our car, nonstop. So, not that I don't like music, I do, but for the most part, during the day, I'm back to back podcasts, getting different marketing ideas, or how to talk about these lawsuits, just education constantly. I never was really like good in school, so I'm not a book reader or anything like that, but I love a podcast. So, those are probably, and I have a real estate coach. I hired her in October. Previously, I had never had a coach before, and she's really, really helped me on scaling some of my systems and just looking at my time and how do we get more time back, for my day, and to spend more time with my kids and that kind of thing. So that's been huge, instrumental to now.
If anyone on the call was interested in coaching, because I've always been coached, I've always paid for coaching, I've spent
Hmm.
a stupid amount of money on it,
Yeah.
but I've always made it back, like
Yeah.
with what I've learned and taken from it. Is your coach taking on any new clients?
I think she is. I know it's an interview process, but I'm pretty sure that she is. Her name's
Okay,
Raquel Quinnett.
perfect. So if anyone on the call, like, I'm assuming you're okay if they reach out to you or shoot you an
Oh,
email just to
absolutely.
introduce
Of course.
themselves. But
Hmm.
um, other than real estate numbers, because it's so easy to get tied into that and that's your identity, what does success look like for you outside of real estate?
Hmm. Well, obviously, being a good mom and a good wife are two huge things. And I'm lucky that I have so much support at home between my husband and family and all of that, because I know that I couldn't do what I do without a huge support system. And like you always hear, it takes a village. It truly does. Kids are hard and amazing and all of that stuff. But how do you balance, and how do I make sure that I'm not on my phone constantly when I do get home at 5 and I only have maybe 2.5 hours before they go to bed? I want to make sure that I can play outside with them and not be worried about, oh my gosh, how many calls am I going to miss? So it's the other thing that I try to really look at is reviews, and making sure that my clients the two big things that my dad, I guess, taught me is that customer service is a lost art, and that if you create raving fans, you'll never have to ask for business again. And so I always want to make sure that at the end of the day, my clients are beyond happy, not just, oh, we got the keys and Sarah did a good job. It's, we couldn't have done this without her. And not every time. I mean, a lot of deals are easy peasy, but sometimes they're not. And you really do need someone fighting for your, I guess, to make sure that you're being protected through the process. And so I just always want to make sure that my clients feel like I had their number one, making sure that they're happy at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And you talked a little bit about this, but your phone, being on your
Yeah.
phone at night around your kids, what what expectations or how do you handle that? Because I want the same thing, right? I try to
Mhm.
limit my conversations at night as much as possible, but I've really had to change my expectations with my agents, with my clients. Like if it's
Mhm.
important, I will get back to you. You
Yeah.
know, it if it's an emergency or we have a quick offer we got to get in. But I always gauge urgency from my clients. You know,
Mhm.
are you going to look at something tomorrow or tonight or try to gauge that? So give a little bit about how you handle that because it is one of the toughest things in our industry when all of our business is in our pocket, you know?
Yeah.
So,
And it doesn't go away. I mean,
right,
this world of being able to be contacted immediately is new. I mean, in the 20 years ago, or I guess we had cell phones back then, but 30 years ago when we had landlines, you didn't have to get back to somebody immediately. It was normal to leave a message and they'll get back to you when they could. So what I had to do is just get another phone, which is a work line. And so that's what I advertise with. And my clients know that if it's urgent or a house comes up that we have to go and it's going to be sold in 2 hours, that kind of thing, I'm there. And if I can't get there, then someone on my team will open the door for them. So I try to set the expectations up front in a buyer or seller's meeting that, hey, I'm going to go above and beyond and try to be as communicative as possible, but also understand that I have a 2 and a 3-year-old and a family, and there might be a time where I can't get back to you for a couple hours. And as long as it's not urgent, the world's not going to have a problem if I don't respond for 2 hours to your text message about what the utility average is, or, something silly.
right, for sure. And I've noticed that most people, since I became a dad, I set that same expectation. And I've noticed that most people like appreciate that and it makes you
Hmm.
more of a real person.
Yeah,
And when shit hits the fan, they do need a quick response. You're responding quickly,
you're
you
there.
know? So,
Hmm.
um, but from this point, I kind of want to open it up to Q&A with anyone on the call. We got Sarah for a little bit longer, and I would take advantage of it as an agent. So if you have any questions right now, um, unmute yourself or raise your hand, and I can unmute you. But I want this to be interactive with you guys, so you guys can get the most out of it too.
While we're waiting for anyone to drum up a question, a cute little cheap marketing idea that I've been doing recently is for birthdays, for my clients' birthdays. So Facebook's nice because it's going to show you birthdays for the month or whatever's coming up. And so I don't send them to every single one, but it's a little box. And then I got a little birthday cake, and it's the Little Debbie. I mean, they're so cheap, but when they come pre-packaged and they're wrapped, it looks nice because it's got sprinkles and that on it. And then I send that with a candle and a box of matches. And I should have taken a picture of it. I'll send one to you, Louie. But anyway, they're less than $3 to make, and you can either drop them off at their house or you can ship them for $2.25. So all in, you're $5.25, and it's kind of just a nice way to say happy birthday. Here's a cake and a candle. Hope all your wishes come true.
It's genius.
Smart, easy,
Yeah, it,
cheap.
it just stands out too, and
Yeah.
we're all looking for marketing ideas that are low on cost but effective.
Here's
And
another one. From a listing perspective, you go in with your RPR report, your comps, your tax assessment, and I always take my listing packet, which is cute and nice. But now I've been taking these, we call them seller buckets, and I learned this on a podcast, but they're branded buckets, and inside the bucket is a roll of packing tape, Sharpie, a magic eraser, those stickers that you get on Amazon that say primary bedroom, kitchen, dining room, like where to move for moving. I put one of those in there, just random little things, all in at $6.50. But I take it to the listing appointment. Obviously, if I get the listing, that pays for itself. But I get a lot of compliments on that because other agents, when I'm competing against them and I go to the appointment, they end up saying, oh, they weren't even prepared. They didn't even look at numbers. And you've got numbers, the seller's bucket, all the things. So just another kind of cheap thing that can set you apart, and you can obviously tweak it to what you want. But I just go in carrying my bucket and leave the comps and everything behind.
I can't imagine you lose too many listings, but I'm just
Oh,
picturing you.
really?
I'm just picturing you not get one and picking up that bucket.
Hitting them with it on the way
Right,
out. Big
right.
mistake. No, my dad
Um,
always told me that if we weren't missing out or losing on appointments, we weren't in enough listing appointments. That you shouldn't get every single one. I'm lucky that I do get a lot of them, but he always said we weren't going to enough appointments if you weren't getting a no every once in a while.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because yeah, I mean, everybody's competing for the same stuff,
Right.
and you're not going to click as well with some people, or not tell them what they want to hear.
Hmm.
So it definitely happens. But maybe we can jump into that. So like with rejection, or they go with another agent on a listing.
Hmm.
Do you do you have any follow up with those people?
Not
I
really.
I know you got to be
I'll always
careful a little bit, but
Sure. Yeah. Once, if they tell me that they're going with someone else, or sometimes they'll say why, whether they know them personally or they said it was worth X amount more. I just always, wish them the best and thanks for the opportunity. And it was nice to meet you. And even on situations where you get burned, where you've been working with buyers and then they go buy a FISBO, that's the worst, like the worst phone call to get. But I always, even though you want to say, oh, thanks for wasting my time, I'm always very nice because a lot of times FISBO deals blow up and then they're calling me again to say, hey, this didn't work out. We shouldn't have bought a house without you. We don't know what we're doing. And then I go help them again, usually by signing an EBA at that point or something. But yeah, so I just think the relationship overall is way more important, and you're not going to win every single one. And sometimes I've been on listings too where I didn't want them. Either the seller was completely not realistic, and that's just a waste of time for everyone.
for sure. I mean, sometimes the ones you don't get can be great
Yeah. Yeah.
referral partners. Like for that example, a lot of times they feel bad about it.
Yeah.
So they're going to work hard to try to get you more clients. So how you handle the bad situations is probably more important than how you handle the good.
Completely
So,
agree.
and it's really
Yes.
hard to do because,
It is. I
being
know
a
you want to
lender,
say something
yeah,
else.
being a lender, we get people pre-approved. We work with them for a long time, and you know, you get the occasional rate shopper that is trying to find the cheapest product in town after you put in all the legwork. And yeah, I mean, there's times I want to really say something, but
Hmm.
it's just better. You'll sleep better at night if you just handle it with grace and know
Totally.
that it'll be fine. So
Yeah. And sometimes if you just say something like, hey, because usually they feel bad if they're cutting you out of the situation for whatever reason. So I'll just try to say something along the lines of, oh, well, you can make it up to me if you, next time your friends or your family is going to sell a house, just make sure you think of me. And they almost always do. I mean, that's the nice part, is it comes back. So you just can't dwell on the losses.
absolutely, one of the best referring scripts you could call it I've adapted to is, hey, real estate comes up in a lot of conversations.
Mhm.
When it does come up and you hear it, I want you to think of me, and if you could introduce me to that person.
I love that. Yeah,
Because
that's a
there's
great way to say it.
there's a lot of deals that you lose out on, especially in the lending space, but you just want to get what you can out of it. And
Yeah.
honestly, I've people that I've worked with for 6 months that end up doing that. I still try to get a review out of them because I have put a lot of legwork in that. So
Yeah,
um, don't discount that, and they want to help you how they can. It's just business is business. So
that's right.
any questions? There's got to be some. Cody, I know you got one. I thought he just got off. Someone got off.
Hmm.
Bueller?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you.
All right, what's going on with Sarah? Thanks for all the info today.
Hi. Yeah, thanks for being on here.
It's been fun listening to you talk about how you guys operate your team. So I just started a new team this year. So
Cool.
what's your best? So when you're bringing on, I have a guy that's just passed his test. He's going to go live June 1st. What do you
Thanks.
recommend, like the first couple weeks when you're getting a new agent and training them up? Like what's
Mhm.
your strategy to help them make a splash when they first enter the market?
Sure. So if they haven't already created like their sphere of influence mailing list, whether that's email, regular address, all of that, um, have them start working on that. And I tell people too to just pretend like you're getting married either again or not. And who do you want invited? And go through your Facebook list, go through your phone contact, because I guarantee there's people that you're forgetting and you want everyone to know what you're doing. Next would be social media and just pushing, pushing, pushing. Mostly in the beginning, you're not going to have a lot of listings, and that's okay, but you can share other people's listings. And the perception on social media is they don't know who the actual listing agent is. It just looks like, oh, they're out there listing and selling houses. So try to, I guess, I think just working the sphere from day one is the biggest thing that you really can do. Friends and family and stuff can be difficult in the beginning because do you know what you're doing? Do you not? It's a big,
Mhm.
big purchase. But I think a lot of times what I tell my team is when they're talking to a new buyer or going to a listing appointment, bring me with if you want. I'm happy to just help to try to seal the deal. And sometimes it's just the confidence factor that new agents need.
Right. Well, yeah, thank you.
Hmm.
And what would you say to someone on a team, Sarah, that like for that example with family and friends, because that is very common in real
Hmm.
estate and in lending. Like they know that you are getting a fresh start. Other people don't have to know it, but
Right.
they know you're getting a fresh start. So,
Yeah.
um, how would you, from a script standpoint, what would be your
Hmm.
response if you were that new agent to your family or friends?
Yeah. I usually, so gosh, it's hard on how you would say it, I guess, depending on what the background of the conversation. But I know that my agents, when it does come up, not that they're bringing me up because they don't think that
Yep.
they can do it without me. They're not. It's just I have gone on listing appointments with them because when you're talking, at least when I was new, I remember sitting down with these people who had lived in their house for 13 years. And what do I know about? I didn't even own a home at that time. And how can I tell them what their house is worth? And really, it's proof over promise, but it's hard to have proof without getting your feet wet and doing it a few times. So
Right.
it's just one of those things that you have to get as much experience as you can right away. And it's hard when you don't know how to get it. So just relying on the team leader, I think, to start shadowing on appointments and maybe other people on the team sit in on open showings, listing appointments, anything that you possibly can just to listen and hear conversations. I have a brand new agent now. Her name's Emily, and she just rides around with me. Sometimes she'll drive, which is just a win win because then I can work and get caught up on my emails. She's driving me, but she's listening to conversations all day of how I'm talking about things or comps or an issue with a contract or something like that. So it's really, and that's the biggest way I think I learned from my dad is we would drive around and he would drive me and I'd be kind of working, but I'd also be listening to conversations and how he was explaining things. And scripting is such a big thing. Sometimes people they don't want to role play and they don't want to do scripts, but they're so important. And it's really just, I say the same things over and over again in just different ways based on the client. So getting scripts down, getting contracts down, making sure you know that contract inside and out is, I think, the biggest way that you can gain confidence as a new agent.
Perfect. What else we got? Morgan, you got anything? Gonna put people on the spot.
Well, I got Clinton, actually, the guy I was talking about. He's actually on the call. So, Clinton, if you have anything you want to ask Sarah, this is a good time to do that.
Congrats, Clinton. New agent coming in hot. I like it.
The issue I have is I've only lived in Des Moines for 2 years, so my sphere of influence isn't that big. What do you recommend?
Meet as many people as you can. Volunteer, join. If you're passionate about certain things, try. I would just, if you're into sports, whatever it is, join and meet new people. It's, I think, the best way that you can grow your sphere. In the beginning, obviously, you want your phone to ring and just start getting appointments, but without knowing people and having conversations, that just really won't happen. So I would say meet as many people as you can. And in the meantime, too, try to get involved in like your local board by volunteering at different events that they do, because you'll meet a lot of new agents that way too. Just we, at least here, I think there's 1,000 agents in the Quad Cities or close. So I recognize most of the names and stuff now, but I think the sooner that you can build relationships with other agents and just other people in general, the faster that you're going to get clients.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Clinton, you got people on this call, in your local market. Feel free to book meetings or reach out, whether they're an agent, lender. Rich is an insurance agent. Once you get in with people in real estate or insurance or lending, you're gonna start going to events and start running into the same people, and you'll be just fine. So
It's exactly what Louis did. Louis cold called me. We went to Applebee's. What is this, 10 years ago? How long ago? 8?
she suggested Applebee's. Just saying. I was like, whatever, Applebee's. Apparently,
It was
it's a
right
hot
across
thing
from
in the
my
Quad
office at the
Cities. Yeah.
time. Yeah. But yeah, you just never know where one phone call or one meeting is going to lead you. And Louis and I have been good friends for all that time. Plus, then he meets John, and it just one thing leads to another. So never be afraid to ask for a coffee or a lunch, or the more people you know, the more successful you'll be.
And then Morgan had a question here in the chat. Do you have any
Yeah.
special events you like to do throughout the year? I think you touched on the movie.
Yeah, both. I guess I'm on a movie train with the movie theater and the drive-in. My office, so we have an office in Bettendorf and we do different events throughout the year as well. So this summer we're going to do one that we invite a couple local photographers to come and then have a couple backdrops, and then my clients can come and get new family portraits. That will be one that we'll do probably in July or August. And then we'll do Pie Day, which is the day before Thanksgiving. Big pies from Costco, have our clients, we'll either drop them off or they can come pick them up. And then also in the fall, we do mums, where it's, mum season, and drop them off. I do the mums to really like the clients that refer me the most over the years, just because I don't have a lot of time to drive around to drop these off. But there's all kinds of different ways to just touch base with your clients. And the last thing that you want is to sell them a house and then you don't talk to them for 5 years, and then they think, oh yeah, she was really nice, but I can't remember her name. And then they get on Google and find another agent, and the other agent sells their house. So not to say it happens, of course, other times people just become better friends with a different agent or something like that. But for the most part, they want to work with who they've worked with again if they had a good experience. So just making sure that they don't forget you is so important. Oh, and since we're in the great state of Iowa, the Iowa football Hawkeye magnets I send out, and I've done that for 14 years. And that's one of the things that my clients really look forward to. It's a mailing that they know is coming. Football season's upon us. Where's my magnet? And then they post it on social, and I'm able to reshare it and all of that. So since we don't have a professional football team, the Hawkeye magnets, and sorry if there's any Cyclone fans on here, I guess you could do that too. But magnets has been a good thing for me. Another one, I used to send out more mailers that I feel like people just threw in the trash. So I'm always trying to send something of value. And the magnet will stay on their fridge, all season long. And sometimes I'll go to their house to sell it 8 years later, and they've got 7 or 8 rows of magnets that they just have never thrown away. Grocery list is another big one that I've done, and that stays on their fridge all year. And it's, what are we out of? And they can make, and it just has my little picture and my info. And that one's gone over well over the years as well.
I've definitely copied the football magnets.
Yeah, genius.
But they do allow you to split it too if you want to add Iowa State.
I can't do it. I don't do it, but I'm not by AIM, so I feel like I can get away with that. You guys are
Oh,
closer.
for sure. Yeah, Rich, he's an Iowa State track alum, so
Oh, okay. Well, he's got a good reason then.
Right. Awesome. Well, if you guys, where can people find you?
Instagram is probably the easiest way to contact me, and my handle's Sara DeWulf Realtor, I think. Let me double check that before I tell you guys that. But Instagram, feel free to reach out to me. I'm in my DMs and I respond to all those. Otherwise, you can my website is easiest. My Instagram handle is Sara DeWulf Realtor.
Perfect.
But I'm always down to collab and do all kinds of different stuff. So, can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear. There you are. Your
Am
camera
I
went a
back?
little.
Okay. I
Yeah,
don't know
you're
where the
frozen.
camera went, but I don't know. Okay, I'm back.
Well, you're on.
Okay,
You're
good. So yeah, Instagram's probably the fastest and easiest way to get a hold of me, but if ever you need marketing ideas or what's working, what's not, I'm always happy to collab on that kind of stuff. So reach out.
Absolutely. And obviously you guys have clients that move to the Quad Cities and vice versa. So just to build a
Yeah.
relationship with someone outside of Des Moines is important. So really appreciate you jumping on. It means a lot. I know you're
Yeah,
like
thank
the
you.
busiest person in the Quad Cities.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I really, really appreciate it. And hopefully you guys found value in this today, and reach out to Sara if you ever have any questions, and give her a follow on Instagram. So
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you guys so much. It was nice.
perfect.
I mean, to virtually meet you all. Thanks, Louie.
Yep. Thanks a bunch.
Okay, bye.